This program was designed to provide all of the necessary formal music education a person will ever need in a very simple and step-by-step manner. The goal was to provide a beginner with a way to reach the point that you can play a simple melody with simple chords in the key of C. That is really the starting point of playing by ear. The 10th chords in part 8 earned the title of the magic chord because the shape of your hand never changes and you just move up the keyboard one white key at a time. In the same way, playing a simple melody with simple chords of a new song in the key of C deserves the title of the magic starting point. Because once you reach that magic starting point, playing by ear takes over completely. Once you get to the magic starting point, don't ever try to change the basic melody. To me, playing by ear really consists of adding tons of harmonies, chords, and rhythms to the composer's basic melody and chords using both hands. I've arranged songs in that way for 68 years, so it's not so much playing by ear as it is arranging by ear. But first you must get to the magic starting point. A quick review. I've showed you how to read simple melodies in the treble clef only, one note at a time, and where to find simplified music in that format. That was essential. By reading and learning the major scales, you develop dexterity, you learn to read the simple music, and you have learned what a major scale sounds like. All of that was essential. And because I think I went way too fast at the very beginning of this program, I'm preparing a new introduction just for true beginners, people who maybe have never seen a piano. Anyway, I have showed you where to find chord charts and given you a list of 35 chords in part 8.1 that you must learn. Those chords are all focused on the key of C. If you've done that, you have not only learned what keys to hit on the piano to play each of those chords, but of equal importance, you have also learned exactly what each of those chords sounds like. To play by ear, you must know what the categories of major chords sound like. A simple major chord, a major sixth, a major seventh, a simple minor, a minor sixth chord, a passing chord such as the seventh chords and the minor seventh chord, and so on. All of that was essential because listening to, learning, and then using those sounds is simply playing by ear. When I discuss copyrights later in this part 9, there is a copyrighted song that plays a huge part in this part 9. That song is the theme from the wonderful 1994 movie Forrest Gump. The song, commonly called the Feather Theme, was written by Alan Silvestri. It is unique in several ways that caused me to choose it for this program. In my repertoire, it is listed as a children's song because it is very pretty. It is so simple as it seems to be almost innocent. Basic qualities of what I call my children's songs. Granted, Forrest Gump was an adult through most of the movie, but because of his learning disability, he was also wonderfully childlike through the entire movie. The song is also unique in that it has no lyrics, it has no bridge at all, so the single chorus lasts about 35 seconds, short. The song is only heard 2 times in the entire movie, at the very beginning and the very end, in what are called the feather scenes. Ironically, like Forrest, I once had a Jenny in my own life that I never gave up on, but unlike Forrest's Jenny, my Jenny never showed up on my doorstep. To emphasize that you already know how to get to the magic starting point, the ability to play a simple melody using the correct simple chords, I have digitally created the first 4 bars of the song, the Feather Theme. As always, it's in the key of C, 4/4 time, treble clef only, 1 note at a time, with 2 simple chords from the 8.1 list. If you are unable to play this on your piano, you need to go back to part 2, work forward from there, and figure out what you didn't practice sufficiently. Hopefully, everyone who has made it this far will have no trouble playing this. You don't need the whole song written out if you can read the first 4 bars. You can find it in a songbook somewhere. It does take you to the magic starting point, but only by reading. If you're already able to reach the magic starting point by reading and then actually playing a simplified song, my goal in this part 9 is to show you in great detail how to get to that same magic starting point without reading any music. I mentioned at the end of part 7 and told you to use this exercise with every song that you heard for the rest of your life. Here's what you must do and how to do it. In the case of the Feather Theme, this will serve as the first example of listening your way to the magic starting point. You first have to learn the melody. If you don't already know it, so that you can hum it without error. You don't have to memorize the lyrics. In this case, there are no lyrics, but if there are lyrics, you don't have to memorize them if you're learning a different song, but you must memorize the melody. If you don't like the Feather Theme, I apologize, but I have to start somewhere, and so we'll just live with it. First, please shut your eyes, or get the idea of shutting your eyes, and don't even touch a real piano. I'm going to play the entire melody with basic chords in the key of H, which of course does not exist. Don't even try to figure out what key I am playing it in. Just listen with your eyes shut and start humming. At the end of the song, I will tell you to go back to the beginning of this song and replay it with your eyes shut as many times as necessary until you can hum it without error. Here's the basic melody and chords of the Feather Theme. Now, listen to that as many times as you have to until you can hum the entire tune. When you have succeeded, you are over the first hump. The second hump is to identify the first note of the song. You must figure out exactly what is the first note of that song in the major scale of whatever key I'm playing it in, and you don't know what key that is, and you don't want to know what key it is, frankly. You don't care what key it's in. You only care which note of the major scale of that key is the very first note of the song. In the case of the Feather Theme, you should be able to figure out that first note fairly easily, and here's how you do it. I'm going to play just the first 9 notes of the melody to show you why it is easy to identify the first note of the Feather Theme. Remember to keep your eyes shut and don't go near a real piano. Here are the first 5 notes. did I say 5? First 9. I'll play them again. Keep your eyes shut and listen to the melody, the first 9 notes, one more time. If you paid attention to the sound of a basic major chord as you worked on the 8.1 list, 8 of those 9 notes should grab your attention because they are really just the major chord of the key that I'm playing in. You can tell by the sound of those notes. So I'm going to play it again and simply leave out the second note, which is the only one of the 8 of the 9 that doesn't fit in that chord. Here's what it sounds like without that second note. Here it is again without the second note. And here's what they sound like together. You don't know, and you don't need to know what key I am playing that in, but you know that it is the major chord of that key. In part 5, you should have learned that because it's a simple major chord. It always consists of the first, the third, and the fifth notes of the scale. It doesn't matter what inversion you are using. It's still the same major chord of whatever key I'm in. And those are all just different inversions, I'm sorry. Diversions is not the right word. Because you can hum the major chord of that scale, you also know how to hum the scale itself. I will play that. Remember, this is the chord of those that comes from those first 8 notes. And here's the scale. Now listen to the first 8 notes again. The major chord is always the first, the third, and the fifth notes of the scale. There's the scale. There's the chord. That's the first note of the scale. That's the third note of the scale. That's the fifth note of the scale. You should know by now that that is the third note of the scale. So here they are again. The first note of the feather theme is the third note of the major scale. Whatever scale I'm playing it in, whatever key I'm playing it in. So if you have made it to that point and you understand that and you're able to understand how you got to that point, you have done it purely by sound. By starting on the third note of the major scale of any key, you should be able to hum the entire melody in any key. So if I gave this as the first note of the scale, then you should be able to hum. If I gave you this note, you would hum. I'm sorry. I picked a terrible key to do that one in. So, now you know how to hum it in whatever key I was playing it in and you were listening to it in. The next hump is playing the melody in the key of C. And here's what you have to do. And I know this is going to sound weird, but it's worked for me all my life. It only works on simple songs, and the feather theme is a simple song. First, you have to shut your eyes and keep them closed, tight. Don't do it right now because you need to see the keyboard of the most important exhibit in this entire Part 9. And here it is. When you shut your eyes, this is what you must see. Nothing else. This is your imaginary piano. You see it in your mind. You know the keyboard, you know the scales, you know what an octave is, from C to C, and the pattern of the white keys and the black keys, 2, 3, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Now, looking at your imaginary piano in your mind and not looking at this one, put your finger on the lowest C on your imaginary piano. If you want to open your eyes, I'll show you where it is. It's right here. That's your lowest C. Then move your finger up to the nearest E, which is right here. There's D, there's E. That's the third note of the C major scale. Because you know that in the key of C, E is the first note of the feather theme. Starting there, you are about to hum the melody and simultaneously play it. You're going to hum it where you've been listening to it, but you don't know what key that is. So you're going to play it in your imaginary piano in the key of C. So just hum the first few notes that you already know, and that already know to hum, and simultaneously, starting on E, play the first few notes on your imaginary piano using the sound of your humming. The difference between whole steps and half steps that you learned in Part 2 may help you with this. Then hum the whole song and play it on your imaginary piano in the key of C. You may have to guess a little, but you'll soon have the chance to correct any mistakes. Hit the keys on your imaginary piano that you think are the notes you are humming. Because it is so simple and because you know what scales and intervals sound like, you may quickly get it exactly right. Certainly you ought to come close. Repeat this until you have nearly memorized the notes that you have been playing on your imaginary piano. Now, since you have already watched yourself hit what you believe were the correct notes on your imaginary piano in the key of C, you can open your eyes and sit down at your real piano. Rely on your memory of what you just did with your imaginary piano. Start one octave above middle C, which would be here, and go to the first E, which would be here. That's the first note of the feather theme in the key of C. And so you start humming the song all over again, but that is your first note. And it goes like this. And try to play it on your real piano, one note at a time, using nothing but the sound of the melody. If any note that you hit on your real piano doesn't sound right, then poke around and find the correct note that matches your humming. Let me demonstrate how badly you can mess up. Ooh, That's not right. Poke. And that isn't what I hummed. Ah, there it is. I got it right. So now I keep going. Oh, I did it again. A second time I did it. So I got all the right notes in the key of C on my real piano. And that, of course, will be you. Finish the whole song that way with your real piano, and guess what? You have now, for the first time, played the entire simple melody of the feather theme in the key of C using no written music whatsoever. On a real piano. You have finally played a melody not by reading, but only by listening. And that takes you over the third hump. The last hump to reach the magic starting point is figuring out the chords that go with that melody that you can play by ear. You started this program because you all wanted to play by ear. If you did your homework and learned the 8.1 list of chords, all of which are intended for use in the key of C, you know what they sound like. Now play the melody of the feather theme in the key of C on your real piano, one note at a time, and find the chords that go with the melody. Remember, you took a test in part 1 that asks you to identify the correct chord out of 5 choices to the first 8 notes of Silent Night. You're doing exactly the same thing now, except that you should now be able to recognize the sound of every chord that you learned. Experiment as much as you need to, but find the basic chords that fit the melody of the feather theme in the key of C. All of them are on the list. Here's what the full feather theme sounds like with the most basic chords I can come up with. This is the key of C. If you're struggling with this, here's a tip. Listen to what I just played as often as necessary and concentrate on the chords. Try to identify the basic category of each chord. Is that a major chord, which would include a 6th and a major 7th, but I'm not using those. That's the 6th, that's the 7th. Is it a minor chord? Is it a passing chord like a 7th? That's a minor 7th. Once you've done that, go back to experimenting, and with the help of the categories of each chord that you were able to identify, and with the list from 8.1, you should be able to figure out every chord, just the very basic chords for that entire song. Write down their symbols if it will help, because you should have learned those for sure. Eventually you will succeed and be able to play the entire melody one note at a time and all of the basic chords that go with that melody. Your first success. You have finally reached the magic starting point using no written music whatsoever. You have learned to play the basic melody and the basic chords without using any music. Now, a few random thoughts before I use the feather theme to demonstrate the evolution of a simple melody with simple chords, i.e. the magic starting point, into a constantly changing and increasingly delightful arrangement of your own. Many moons from now, after you have achieved enough confidence playing in the key of C, you should start exploring at least 2 other keys. I strongly suggest that you first try the relatively easy keys of F with only 1 flat, which is B flat in the key of F, and then the key of G with only 1 sharp, which is F sharp. But you can try harder keys if you want to. There is a side benefit of learning to play in the keys of F or G. Once you learn to play adequately in either of those keys, you will be able to offer any singer who wants to sing along with you a second choice in addition to the key of C to match the range of his or her voice. If they can't handle C or either F or G, don't let them sing along with you. I've had that happen. It's better just to be blunt. When you have finally been successful in playing a new song with a simple melody and simple chords in the key of C, whether you've learned it only by listening or if you use the written music that you learned earlier in the program, you are truly ready to start creating, to start playing by ear. But proud as you may be, you must never stop practicing the major scales and all the chords so that you don't forget how to read simple music from songbooks to get to the magic starting point. Once you graduate to more complex songs, you will almost certainly need to transpose songs from simplified songbooks into the key of C and read your way to the magic starting point in the key of C. So ends my feeble effort to deal with copyright laws. Now we are back to the magic starting point of playing the piano by ear. I'm now at the point where I have to move the camera overhead so that you can watch the keyboard as this part 9 continues. Then I will try to demonstrate what I call the evolution of a completely simple song at the magic starting point into a brand new and far more desirable arrangement of that same song. Everything that you add after the magic starting point belongs only to you. It will be all of your own creation, and you should celebrate everything you add. So if you'll forgive me, I will now turn off the camera and reposition it. Before I get into an example of creative arranging, I'm going to play a delightful song that is a perfect example of a song where reading your way to the magic starting point is 1,000 times easier than trying to listen your way to it. Then perhaps you'll better understand why you must never give up on reading simplified music. This 40-year-old popular song almost defies learning only by listening. It was the theme song in the movie Arthur. Somehow it was written by 4 people: Christopher Cross, Carol Breyer Sager, Peter Allen, and Burt Bacharach. And that's the only name I know. Arthur's theme, that's the title, won the Academy Award for the Best Song in Movies of 1981. There are 2 huge reasons that it is so difficult to learn only by listening. In the first place, the song is in 2 different keys. It starts out in the key of E flat and ends up in the key of C. To make matters even worse, it doesn't start out on an E flat major chord. It starts out on an F minor 7th chord, a passing chord of all things. So it's very, very difficult to try to learn this song by listening to it. So that's why you never can forget how to read simplified music. And here's Arthur's theme. If you think that those were tough chords to follow, I hope that you'll take the time to listen to at least part of a 1975 album entitled Feeling Free. If you love chords, I know of no composer or arranger on this planet who holds a candle to this man and his group. His name is Gene Perling, and his group is called the Singers Unlimited. 4 people, 4 singers, including Mr. Perling, both arranging and singing, used multiple tracking to end up with as many as 16 voices and chords so complex and incredibly beautiful as to defy both description and, for me, replication. I couldn't begin to identify countless chords on that album. For me, it is the last and most unachievable example of playing by ear, and you can listen to it on the internet. Now, this is not an easy task. I'm going to try to show you creative arranging. I'm going to start with the feather theme from Forrest Gump in its most basic form, the magic starting point. Here is the basic melody and the bare minimum chords in the key of C that I came up with. You will find all of them in the list in part 8.1. Now, each time I play it, I will add just a little to the performance in the same exact way that I probably stumbled my way through when I first learned the song in the 1990s. I will try to announce every chord and every change, but as the chords and additions become more complex, the harder it is for me to name them. If I miss a few, please forgive me. It wouldn't hurt after we have concluded this if you would scroll back to this point and try to replicate every chord that you are about to see and hear, just to get the feel of slowly expanding the arrangement of a song. If I had been reading simplified music to reach this magic starting point, it might have had slightly more advanced chords and more of them. The first time I used no major 6th chords. This is a major 6th. No major 7th chords. No minor 6th chords. No minor 7th chords. I only used a C major, a basic D minor, a basic G 7th, and a basic A minor. So let's try adding a little to each of those basic chords. The C major chord, this, could also be a C major sixth, and a C major seventh, or even a C 10th. I'll start with the major seventh, but I may also use the sixth and the 10th. The D minor chord will sound better if it's a D minor seventh. So I'll add the seventh, and I may also use the 10th. I'll do the same with the A minor chord, add the seventh, and maybe use the 10th. Note that these chord changes are exclusively in the left hand. The right hand is still just playing the one note at a time melody. So the song now creatively has evolved into this. Now I'm going to add 6 notes that I don't believe are really a part of the melody. They seem to be a sort of a background phrase that the composer used like a passing chord to take you from a C major chord to an A minor chord. And here's how that works, and it's right at the very beginning. Or not right at the beginning, but near the beginning. Here's another variation. The G7th chord can be modified by changing the third note of the G scale. This is a G7th. There's the scale. The third note is B. That's the 7th again, except you change it. I don't even know what to call it except an 11th, which makes no sense. But you change the B to a C momentarily, so long as your right hand is not simultaneously playing the B. So it comes out like this, but it won't work if you have that note in there. So, but listen to the difference that it makes, and it's another passing chord, but it's quite delightful. So here's how that works. So we're still just playing the melody with the right hand. So now I'm going to start adding harmonies. I call harmonies essentially 2-note chords. This is just plain old simple C with my right hand. That's a harmony. That's a harmony. That's a harmony. That's a harmony. They're all harmonies if you just use 2 notes as opposed to a whole chord. So I will play it now using some harmonies. Then I would start adding integrated chords with my right hand. I won't try to name these, but you can always replay this part, slow the speed down if you can, and watch these chords unfold. So here is the first shot at using integrated chords. Now, I will add rhythm just by rolling many of the chords with my left hand and matching that rhythm with my right hand. When I start doing that, I can include some of the magic 10th chords to provide that additional rhythm. Note that since my right hand has now gone way beyond the simple melody, my left hand may only need to play simple octaves because my right hand is providing all the rest of my chosen chord. Play it with at least some rhythm when you reach this point. So here's what it sounds like now. I have no doubt that piano teachers have been highly critical of my emphasis on the key of C. The feather theme is an ideal example of a song that is relatively easy to play in other keys, but because it has no bridge, it is a very short song with only one chorus. You really need to find a way to extend it. You can't insert a replacement melody unless you are presenting a song in a jazz format. You have already added a lot of chords. What can you do? The only legitimate solution that I can come up with is to extend the song by playing it in one or more different keys and to change the strength of the presentation. Since I recommend F and G as new keys for you to experiment with, I will play the feather theme as I play most of my children's songs. The first time is simplified up high in C. Then I play it lower in the key of F with more strength. Then I play it again in the same way but change to the key of G. Finally, I go back up to the high simple version in the key of C. The total song is now over 2 minutes long, and at least to me, it doesn't seem boring. And so here is how I play it today. is one tiny example of taking a simple song, starting at the magic starting point, and expanding it into what you just heard. And I love to play it. I don't love to play the magic starting point because it's pretty boring. But I hope that helped you understand how you can slowly improve a song, starting with very little, and then just turning it into something that you're proud of. I spent many hours trying to figure out how to conclude this program. At the conclusion of part 7, I sort of signed off. I thought about it. I felt obligated to offer additional help with chords and with the left hand. So I watched my left hand for hours, literally, and finally noticed my use of the magic chord, and that gave rise to part 8. At the end of part 8, I again had run out of tools, and I again thanked everyone and said goodbye. I was wrong again. I realized that my imaginary piano was not only useful, but it completely avoided all music reading, at least on simple songs. I decided to describe the imaginary piano in great detail. That's how this part 9 came about. But before I conclude this part 9, I want to insert a fairly unusual genre of music, just because it is unusual and it's also fun. It is probably the least likely genre that you would expect from me, and it can be summed up in one word, and that word is humor. Over the course of several years, I encountered this remarkably versatile melody from several countries. Every version I encountered was much older than the well-known American Western song. We know the song as Ghost Riders in the Sky. I will play the American version first, and will then play the remarkably similar versions from other countries. Here is the American version of Ghost Riders in the Sky. Here's the Polish version of Ghost Riders in the Sky. Here's the Chinese version. Now, the Mexican version, Ghost Riders in the Sky. Finally, the most impressive, the most difficult, and the very serious Russian version of Ghost Riders in the Sky. I've talked rather endlessly about the emotional power of music, and this last song of part 9 is the very best example of how that power personally affects me on an almost daily basis. I'm a very early riser, and every morning before I head for my office, I have to walk right past my piano at least twice. On well over half of those mornings, certainly 4 mornings of every single week, on the second trip past the piano, I stop, sit down, and play this song. This has been going on for years. Every morning that I play it, it instantly brightens my day. That's pretty close to miraculous because it never fails to help a little, and sometimes it helps a lot. The song is from the wonderful musical Oklahoma, and is called "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning." I'll play it for you exactly as I play it. The lyrics in the chorus are the reason I play the song. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. And that's a nice way to start every day of your life. And that's what I do more often than not. Here's how I play it.